Hello, gamers from around the world. This is Boxenberger, the video game enthusiast from Germany, and I would like to welcome you to this week's episode of the World of Gaming, the #1 podcast Dutch, where we discuss everything that happens in gaming. We talk about the games, the news, and technology. And today we have plenty of technology stuff to talk about. So I'm excited for the show, but first of all, I would like to welcome our awesome community. I see a lot of familiar names in the chat. Big welcome to you guys, but of course also a big welcome to everyone who listens after the fact, either here on YouTube or on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you are listening. A big welcome. And Dutch, how are you doing today?
Yeah, everything's good. Like you say, I mean, we had this discussion off air. It's been very warm recently, so
Oh yeah.
Sitting in this place, gaming has been not an option. So we've been playing our handhelds a little bit more.
Yes, indeed. Same here, man. I'm sweating away. It's humid. It's hot. Everything's sticky.
Hay fever.
I
Really.
was honestly debating whether to just take my entire PC and desk here to my backyard and we do the podcast
Outside.
open air style, you know. Because I've been gaming actually a lot open air lately because it's just too warm to stay inside. And so usually in the evening when the kids are in bed, I go outside with my Asus ROG Ally, not the Xbox Ally just yet, the regular Ally. And you know, console streaming is working if you are in the same network like your home console. It works just perfectly. No lag, no nothing. You can let the Ally run then in the energy super saving energy mode, which allows you then at least 2.5, 3 hours of continued gameplay. And you cannot let that thing run when you run games natively on it. Then you need the performance mode, yeah, which is 3 times the power consumption than the energy saving mode. But for console streaming, it works perfectly. And so I've been playing a lot on the Ally lately in the evening outside, open air style. Dutch.
Yeah, and I've just been playing a little bit more on the Switch. I haven't gamed in here for the last week or so because it's just too warm, like really warm. It's been, believe it or not, in the UK, it hit to above 30, which for the UK is very hot.
Very hot, yeah, for the UK.
So yeah, very warm. It hasn't been very comfortable to sit in the house, let alone play games in the house. So the little that I have been playing has been on a nighttime on the Switch too, whilst I'm in bed. Chilling out, and then occasionally playing a little bit of Pokemon or playing some Mario Kart or something like that, and just relaxing. So yeah, I haven't had the biggest of chances to game this week because of the temperature, but
yeah,
I have done a little bit. But not
we get into the games you've played in just a second.
Yeah.
But before we properly start the show, first of all, apologies for not having a podcast last week. There was a national holiday last Thursday here in Germany, and the wife and I, we decided spontaneously to take a trip. We went to Legoland, man. We visited some friends, stayed overnight, and then went to Legoland, man. The kids loved it. I hated it. You know, they have this thing after each roller coaster. When you exit the roller coaster, you have to walk through a Lego store. So after like each ride, you have the discussion with the kids why you're not getting this Lego set or that Lego set, and it is super annoying, man.
They know exactly what they're doing.
They know what they are doing, but it's anyway. We had a great day, though. We had a great day, but that's the reason why we didn't have a podcast last week. So apologies for that. But we are back this week with a lot of topics. Of course, some of those topics might feel already a little outdated to some because we will talk of at least, of course, about the AMD and Xbox announcements that actually happened last Thursday, and we could have covered during last week's podcast, but we'll be talking about that. We have a very Xbox centric podcast here today. Yeah, we have a couple of news about not so good news about layoffs. We have the big Xbox announcement for Gamescom, the Xbox Meta Quest. So that's why we titled this show, What About the Xbox Future? We will talk a lot about that, but we also have a couple of great things on games. Plot of the Dawnwalker was shown, and so on. We're going to have an awesome show, and so a big welcome to everyone again. And if you do enjoy the show, we would appreciate you guys hitting the like button. Maybe share it out to some friends. Let everyone know we are live. Share the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We would appreciate that. But Dutch, let's actually get into some news, into the show. And we always start the show with the most important thing in gaming and the other games we are playing. So, as always, we want to know from everyone here in the chat, what are you guys currently playing? And Dutch, what kept you busy over the last 2 weeks, we have to say?
Indeed. I don't know whether or not I spoke. Did I speak a couple of weeks ago about playing Aura History Unknown?
Yeah, you mentioned it briefly.
Yeah, it's I played a little bit of that, of course. I've installed it temporarily now because, of course, it does take up quite a chunk on the PC. And I wasn't really feeling it enough to keep it installed, but I did play a good, must have been 3-4 hours, like off the trot straight away. Because, of course, with tactical games like that and strategy games, they don't take like half an hour or an hour or something like that to finish. They can last hours or days, depending on what it is. So it was okay. It was all right. But I uninstalled that, and then I installed Alters.
Yes.
I played the Alters a little bit on PC. I haven't played it on Xbox yet, but I played it on PC for a bit. That seems interesting. It's intriguing, but I haven't played enough of it to give a good rundown of it yet. But it looks nice. It's an intriguing meld of survival and resource management and base building and adventure. So we'll see if I click with it. We had a discussion about the Alters just before we started, and I'll let you get your thoughts on it in a bit as well. But yeah, I'm intrigued by it, but it hasn't really captured me as yet. I've just uninstalled it from the PC and installed it on Xbox. So I'm going to continue playing it on Xbox.
Beauty of Play Anywhere.
Yes, the beauty of Play Anywhere, exactly. So I can just continue where I left off. I also installed Crash Bandicoot 4 because this is one of the games that I intentionally didn't buy when I knew Xbox was purchasing Activision Blizzard.
ABK, yeah.
Yep. So I thought, oh no, I already own every other Crash Bandicoot. I got the trilogy, I've got Crash Team Racing.
Yeah.
But I'll hold off on getting 4 because, let's face it, Xbox is buying them, so I don't have to buy the next one.
Yeah.
So I've been playing a little bit of that. That's really cool. I'm enjoying playing that again. It reminds me a little bit more of the layout in the past of like a Rayman, where you had kind of the overworld after each thing, and you can kind of select which one you want to do again.
Yeah.
Which is cool. So I'm just kind of very slowly making my way through that. And then going over to the Switch, which I've been playing a little bit more of because, of course, it's been too hot. A little bit more Mario Kart World and more Pokemon. That's between Pokemon Sword, Pokemon Diamond, and Pokemon Violet, which I've been kind of jumping in between each one and kind of progressing little parts on each one of them. So
yeah.
And we also discussed a new game that's coming out very soon for that I'm interested in, and that's Donkey Kong Bonanza, which
looks really good. That really looks good. It reminded me a little bit on the good part of Crackdown, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
with
a little
all
bit.
the destruction going on and but it also has a lot of like if it looks like it has a lot of adventure going on, just seeking out in the well, open world I wouldn't say, but open areas. It really looks good, man.
Yeah, it does. It does. And the hidden diamonds in indestructible environments, or
Yeah.
deep down in the floor, or there's a lot. A lot to play in there. It looks fantastic. Apparently, it's by the same guys that did the Mario World, the most recent one.
Ah, yeah, I know what you mean. The one with the elephant.
With the silly hat where you could put it onto different things, and you
No,
could be the
really,
dinosaur. Or
Mario
yeah, it's
Odyssey.
the same team that did Odyssey. Yeah.
Ah, I didn't know that.
So that,
Interesting.
I mean, that kind of explains why it looks so creative.
Because Odyssey was fantastic, man.
Yeah. So yeah, that turned from a game that I was kind of interested in to, oh yeah, I definitely want this. It looks
Sweet.
fantastic.
Yeah. If I had
So
a
now,
Switch 2 yet,
mhm.
I would get that too, man. Um,
So now there's 4 games that I'll be getting for the Switch this year. So obviously I've already got Mario Kart World. We'll get Donkey Kong,
Yeah.
get Pokemon ZA when that comes out, and if Metroid does launch this year, like they slated it to, then Metroid as well. So it could be a very, very strong opening for the Switch in terms of first 6 months
Yeah.
from first party.
Yeah, I must admit, although Metroid still comes out for the old Switch, so it's not really required to upgrade. So I'll be playing Metroid on the old Switch.
And I'll be playing it in 4K up to 120 hertz. Woo!
Sweet. Yeah, I know it's not going to be the best place to play that on the old, but better than nothing. And yeah, I'm still. It's a lot of money, man. And the Rock Xbox LE comes out, and I know I'll be getting that, and I will play a lot more on that thing than on my Switch too.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why I'm saving the money for the Rock Xbox LE, and then I'll be getting the Switch 2 next year down the line. But yeah, man.
Understandable.
Yeah.
What have you been playing?
So I've been playing Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. I'm 25, 30 hours in now. And man, I'm so torn with this game because everything but the combat is so good. Really. From the RPG mechanics, the story, the world building, the quest design, it's phenomenal. It looks beautiful. It's some of the vistas, man, absolutely awesome. I love this medieval world that is not with dragons and fire and everything. It is a very realistic medieval world, absolutely fantastic. I love that. I absolutely despise and hate the combat though. And I think I spoke during the last podcast already about that. And it didn't bother me as much as it did in the first one, because the first one already had an awful combat system. Because in the first 25, 30 hours I played, there wasn't really much combat if you try to avoid it. The game rarely forces you into combat. It is not like in, I don't know, a Skyrim or so, where you just walk around the open world and everywhere are monsters and you gotta fight every 2 minutes. That's not the case in Kingdom Come Deliverance. It's really like most mainline quests in the beginning do not force the combat on you, because either you can talk your way out of combat or you just have the occasional one night that comes up and you have to fight that guy and then continue. But that changes along the storyline. And now I'm at a point where I simply cannot continue. I'm stuck. I hate the combat so much, while I love everything else, but it is super annoying. I'm stuck in a mainline mission, where I have to battle like 7, 8 bad guys at the same time. And since this combat is so bad, I tried to beat those guys for more than an hour, and now I've given up on the game. I hate to admit it, but I cannot put up with this horrible, horrible combat. What and it annoys the hell out of me because I love everything else about the game, but it is just so freaking annoying. And that's why I stopped playing that. I also checked out the altars. Very much like you, it didn't really click yet, but I must admit I'm also very early in 2, maybe 3 hours, I'd say. So I gotta give that another chance. So far, I really cannot tell you why it didn't click, because the base building mechanics are actually really good. The story is intriguing. There's good stuff there, but I don't know why. Maybe it's my frustration from Kingdom Come spilling over. But so yeah, then I went back and just started my comfort game, and that's The Witcher 3.
Yeah.
Perfect. Like I early mentioned, outside in the backyard on the rock alley, playing some Witcher, absolutely fantastic. So yeah, man, that's mainly what kept me busy. So let's see, what has the community been playing here? Waller Weasel says he has been playing Crypt Custodian, and now he's giving Tales of Cancera a try. Yeah, man, actually, I was thinking about getting that. It actually looks fun. Let me know in the chat what you think about the game. Dustin Lambert started up Doom the Dark Ages, and he loves that game. I agree, man. It is a fantastic, fantastic Doom. I really enjoyed the shield mechanics. That you can block and parry, and it is really good, man. Also, the story actually not too bad, not forced onto you too much. You can still skip the cutscene and enjoy the game, but at least there is something to it. Kind of makes sense battling the demons this time. It's actually, I really enjoyed Doom. It gets a little repetitive towards the end, though. That was my only criticism, but Doom,
Yep.
it's great. Anyone in your chat, man?
Yeah, Agent X-Force just says hello to both of us. Hope we're doing well. And he said he's still plowing through the Division 2 Battle for Brooklyn DLC.
Great DLC, man. Great DLC. Are the servers still occupied?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Division 2 has always got busy servers.
I haven't played it in a long time. I wish there was a third one coming, man. We talked about this a couple of podcasts ago.
Yeah.
There's different reportings on whether they are doing one or not, so we really don't know.
Yeah, same for Ghost Recon. We don't know whether or not they're actually doing one, or whether or not they are doing one. Or
yeah, true that. All right, Dutch. Let us get into some news of the week.
Yes.
Let us start with some smaller news on games. Hellblade 2, we both enjoyed that game really much.
Yep.
Very much. Last year is now coming to PlayStation, of course. That's not the news part, but it's getting finally the 60 FPS mode that everyone has been asking for, except of course on Series S. But on PlayStation and of course on Xbox, there will be a 60 FPS performance mode then. So what are your thoughts on the game coming now finally to PlayStation and getting this upgrade? Everyone wanted to be there at launch.
Yeah, I'm glad that more people are getting to experience it. It is a fantastic title. A lot of people slandered the game when it came out on Xbox. I think the vast majority of people who slandered the game was just because it wasn't on a specific other box. But the game in itself was fine. Yes, it was short, but the storytelling, the world building, the graphics, the meatiness of the combat, when you kind of in combat, it feels weighty, feels brutal. It was a fantastic experience, and that's really the best way to put it. Is it's a fantastic experience. I definitely highly recommend it. I won't be going back to it even with the performance mode because I've got all of the achievements. So unless they add some achievements to it for the new challenge mode on there, then it's unlikely I'll touch the game again. But it is fantastic. And for those experiencing it for the first time on the other platform, enjoy it. It is a visual masterpiece. It is an audio masterpiece. It is
absolutely
an acting. It is a real standout for the acting side as well. You will really enjoy what you play. So for those of you who are playing it for the first time on PlayStation, enjoy it. And for those of you who waited off so long just to play this in 60 frames and not play it in 30 frames, then you enjoy it as well. I hope it lives up to expectations. But for me, thoroughly enjoyed the game. I'm really glad that it's getting the modes for those who care about 60 frames on those games.
I mean, if a game can get away with 30, it's Hellblade, right? Because this is in the discussion with 30 FPS, there is always this word coming up, this buzzword filmic. And I think if a game deserves that phrasing and that word without any negative attachment, it's Hellblade. It is a cinematic experience. It is a game that looks in very many scenes pretty much photorealistic, right?
Yeah.
The work
100%.
with the camera, the work with the actors and everything. And I usually am a very strong defender for 60 FPS, but in this game it didn't bother me at all to play it at 30. Because the whole experience is designed in a way where it really doesn't bother anyone or shouldn't bother anyone. So
it's like you say, it's not just filming, it is like a film. It's like you're playing a movie, which is fantastic. And of course people will say the combat usually isn't but if you play the game and you actually play it properly, you will enjoy the combat the way they've done it and how it feels, because it does feel like very weighty and it feels like it's got substance to it. And of course you can do parries and you can do counter attacks as well, and you can throw items back that get thrown at you, and if you time it correctly, there is a bit more to it than meets the eye. But it is, it's such a fantastic experience, and I think, like I say, I'm glad more people can experience it.
Yeah, I totally do agree there, Dutch. I totally do agree. You know what? In other game announcements, Blood of the Dawnwalker, the game that is made by some of the Witcher 3 leads. Yeah, the game director left CD Projekt Red, and the lead quest designer left CD Projekt Red. They formed their own studio, and they're working on that game called Blood of the Dawnwalker, which was at the Xbox showcase with a very cinematic trailer, and they had a gameplay reveal, 40 something minutes, with a lot of explanation, of course, in there, but I would say at least 20-25 minutes of gameplay have been shown. So what are your thoughts, man, on Blood of the Dawnwalker?
Yeah, I mean, it looks great so far. It looks great so far. Intrigued to see a little bit more of it, learn more about it as time goes on. Do we know yet? I don't think we do when this game's technically coming out.
26.
Some point.
They said 26, but no specific date.
Yeah, so we'll probably learn more about it, I would imagine, the beginning or middle of next year before it releases, when we get an official date and see a little bit more of the gameplay. But no, it looks fantastic. And the guys that were working at CD Projekt and obviously moved on to do something for themselves are obviously very talented. But then CD Projekt Red, as a studio anyway, are extremely talented as a studio in both storytelling and world building. So I expected no less, but it's very intriguing. And the vampire genres, it's been very hitty missy when it comes to games.
Yes.
So it would be interesting to see if this can eventually recapture an audience when it comes to the vampire genre.
It's a genre we do not get too often. I mean, the last bigger vampire game was probably Redfall. And of course, we
Masquerade.
Yeah, but that was 2 years before Redfall or so, I want to say.
Yeah.
So that's been 4 or 5 years now, something like that. Maybe someone in the chat knows exactly when that came out. But that's what I mean. You know, we get like 10 zombie games a year, but we are not getting like 10 vampire games. But I'm with you. A lot of them are hit and miss. So I have high hopes for that. I did really enjoy what I've seen. It looks good. You tell it's pre-alpha gameplay, but they seem to be very confident in when they show off that much. There was a lot of stuff I liked. I liked the setting. I liked the premise. I liked the RPG mechanics. It looks like a really deep RPG. I love that. The world looks good, just like you would expect from Witcher developers, right? A good, really good designed open world. There's one thing I didn't like, and that's the combat. Because it is not exactly the same like Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, but it goes in this direction where you it's not like
directional.
It's the directional. Yeah, it's Kingdom Come comes to the mind. There was this one Ubisoft game where you had to battle knights.
Chivalry,
exactly. Yeah, that has had similar system. It is not...
I mean, Chivalry is hilarious, though. Chivalry is hilarious.
No, it was not Chivalry. It was from Ubisoft.
Well, that was directional. That was directional combat.
I never played Chivalry. It was not Chivalry. It was For Honor. Thank you, Siki in the chat. Yes. For Honor. I don't like that directional combat. The combat in Blood of the Dawnwalker doesn't look as, you know, as in-depth directional, like, for instance, Kingdom Come now or For Honor, but it's still this schematic, and this is something I really do not like. So I need to see more when the game is more matured, because that can be a deal breaker for me personally, which I would hate because everything else looks really promising in that game. How are you feeling about directional combat, man?
Yeah, it can be hit and missy. It depends on how well it's implemented. Like I say, I've played Chivalry, which is directional combat, and it can be fun, but it can also be frustrating. So it depends on how well it's executed. But it can also lead to some hilarious moments when you've got directional combat, because, of course, like in Chivalry, you can kind of lob people's legs off and lob people's heads off and arms and things like that, and they continue trying to fight with just one arm or one leg for a certain period of time. So, but again, with directional combat, if they attack right, that means you have to block right. If they attack left, you block left, and so on and so forth. So you've got to kind of get used to directional combat, but it depends how well they've implemented it. It can be hit or miss. So the jury's out on that.
Yes. So we need to see more, but of course, it is on my radar, man. It is on my radar. They said they will do other in-depth streams where they explain more, not just on combat, but on the powers that you can have. They've shown a few of them. It's gonna be an open world game. It's gonna be definitely an interesting thing to watch, and I need to see more. Man, 26 is going to be a crazy year for gaming. If that game comes out in 26, of course.
I mean, it's going to be a crazy year for gaming anyway next year, to be fair.
Yeah.
It's going to be massive next year.
Yeah. Tons of really good third-party stuff coming. GTA 6, of course, being the big one. But
which was also eventually put onto the Xbox Store for wish listing now.
Yes, it is. You can wishlist it. But yeah, man. Blood of the Dawnwalker, definitely on our radar. But let's move on from that and get into some Xbox topics, man. Let's get into some Xbox topics. Let's get the.
Your gain's a little bit low on your microphone as well, by the way.
Oh.
You keep cutting off when you're getting away from it.
Let me see if I can increase that. So, is it better? I hope it's better.
Yeah.
Chat, we need your help. Let me know if it's better now. All right, Dutch, let's talk about Xbox and let's get the not so good news out of the way first. There have been reports on Xbox laying off next week a lot of people. Different reports have been claiming different things, in between 1,000 to 2,000 people getting laid off only within the gaming division. There will be other layoffs in other departments within Microsoft as well. It's not gonna just impact the gaming division, but reports of 1,000 to 2,000 people within the Xbox gaming division. There have been reports from Tom Warren, Jason Schreier, etc. today that even studios like Rare and Turn 10 and so on are preparing themselves for what's to come next week. Upper management of those studios has been already informed. It'll go down probably next week. So yeah, Xbox having, man, this very successful year, right? They are finally at this point where we wanted them to be many years ago, where they have a regular cadence of quality games coming out, right? I mean, this year was phenomenal for their releases. They had Ninja Gaiden 2 in January. They had Avowed. They had South of Midnight, Doom, The Dark Ages, and so on. Tony Hawk is just around the corner. Gears is coming later. Outer Worlds 2, Call of Duty, and so on. And guess what? This was only possible because there were people making the games, right? And this doesn't just sound like your regular cut where one of the studios needs to lay off a few people, but this is gonna be a bigger wave of layoffs affecting all kinds of studios. Print Screen in the chat adds, by the way, Oblivion to this list. I knew I was forgetting one. Yes, of course, Oblivion. So, yeah, man, this is really not good news, of course, especially for the people that are affected. But Dutch, what do you think, man? Where's this coming from? Why is this happening? Microsoft making record-breaking revenue this year again, right? There's talk out there that within 18 months they could become the first $5 trillion company. Yep. And the gaming division is thriving like it's never done before. Doesn't matter what you think about their console strategy, but the overall gaming division within Microsoft is thriving, and that's because there are hardworking people that made it successful, that made the games we do enjoy, and now this man. So, what do you think?
It's hard to speculate why this is the case. Of course, they're saying it's down to just simply streamlining and restructuring. It also could be the rise of AI support that they get, so to make things a little bit easier and quicker to do things. That means they need less hands. It could be down to a number of employment taxes that have risen, like in the UK, for instance, where an I has risen to 17.5%, whereas previously it was around about 5-6%. So it's a big jump in employee taxes that they have to pay per head. So a number of factors it could be that cause them to go, okay, we need to streamline even further. As you've mentioned, studios like Rare or Turn 10 and things like that also affected. So the long-standing ones. But it could also just be a case of looking at the studios and saying, okay, where's the inefficiencies? Who are the ones throughout that aren't doing the same amount of work as the rest of them? They're not being as efficient. And it sounds brutal. But ultimately, when you've got a multi-trillion-dollar company like Microsoft, this is a business first and foremost, and you can't justify it, you can't stand up for it, and we're not going to do that. But ultimately, big companies don't make big profit by wasting money.
That is also very true. Yeah.
And unfortunately, the employees will always be one of the first to do that. So you'll see them cancelling projects, or they probably have cancelled a load of projects, not just on the gaming division, but just company-wide that are either inefficient or not kind of meeting its targets or not meeting its justifications for its expenditure, whether that be gaming or otherwise. It could be down to the things like the handheld, as you saw. We still don't know whether or not they're going to be doing their own handheld, or whether or not that's a project that's been canned, and otherwise they've just farmed it off to Asus with the ROG for the future.
We'll be talking about that later. Yeah.
Yeah, so it could be. I mean, there's a multitude of things it could be, but ultimately, big companies are not your friends. Yes, some of the people at these studios you might know, and they might be your friends, but the company itself ultimately is not your friend. They never will be your friend, even if you work there. The company itself is not your friend. It's not your ally. They are your employer, or you are their employee, and they will make cuts to benefit the business, not to benefit you. As brutal as that sounds, we've all been part of it before. Boxy, we've been speaking about it in your industry. It's been very prevalent recently. It's been horrific, in fact. And it's, to be fair, our industry, in the industry I'm in, is exactly the same. It's a very brutal industry, and they cannot afford to just have people sitting there not doing anything and not covering their seat, should we say, not justifying what they're there for. So if they find inefficiencies, or somebody isn't cut out for it anymore, or they just simply need to cut costs, then they will make those calls. And unfortunately, that's exactly what they're going to do. If it means they are putting the business first, cutting inefficiencies in order to make it thrive, then that's what they're going to have to do, and that's what they are doing. So, yeah, it's not a justification. People just need to realize business is business.
That's unfortunately very true, of course. I don't think it has anything to do with the gaming division per se, because it's company-wide layoffs. It's just, hey, we have all these new tools. You mentioned some regarding AI, right? We have this amount of people. We kind of need to downsize and get more efficient there. And so I don't think it's the top decision has been made specifically for the gaming division. But there are certain targets just giving out to all the divisions. I don't know, 10% staff reduction or something like that. And that translates then, of course, into, I don't know, 2,000 people at the gaming division. Nevertheless, it is something that where you kind of have to think. Microsoft took on a lot in the gaming division over the last couple of years with the acquisitions. First, of course, of ZeniMax Bethesda, which made them suddenly a much bigger division within Microsoft. Then, of course, with all the other studio acquisitions. Then, of course, with the big one, ABK, they've taken on a lot, and they are finally now in this place where they have the studio roster to support Game Pass in the way it should be supported, right? With a regular cadence of quality games coming, and we've just had the showcase, and we've seen the roadmap, and we know the roadmap, we know what's coming next year with Gears, with Forza, with probably Halo, with Fable, and all the other good stuff, State of Decay, Perfect Dark, you name it. You know, it's just a fantastic roadmap, and it makes me wonder, Dutch, how will this affect this fantastic pipeline that they have?
I don't know whether or not it will. Because,
you think,
and again,
we might not even notice as a customer?
I think it'll be next to zero notice. And the reason I say that is because Xbox and Microsoft, well, Xbox specifically, have clearly got a remit now of the game releases when the game is ready. So as a customer in its cadence, I don't think we'd notice that difference anyway, because it's currently already in the position now where they're saying, okay, we've got a pipeline of games that are pretty much there or thereabouts or getting polished, etc. Fable, for instance, was delayed till next year just to give it a little bit more time. We saw other games getting pushed back just a little bit. We've still got games like Clockwork, which is literally just it coming out when it's ready. We don't know, but it is. And I think there's just kind of an idea internally of, okay, when it's ready, it releases. I don't think the cadence will ultimately be affected too much. And I think, again, without being harsh, I think they're looking at efficiencies and looking at how the business can be more streamlined, and those that aren't good enough or aren't quick enough or aren't efficient enough at their job will ultimately be the ones, because they're not going to be cutting guys that, for the most part anyway, they won't be cutting guys that are grafting really hard and doing a lot of work and doing a lot for the company. That doesn't make sense to them, because they will see them as a valued employee and they go, okay, this guy's done a lot of this. Like, if I have a look at his pipeline of work, he's done this, he's done this, he's done this, he's done this. Whereas they might, for instance, look at, again, without sounding harsh, a character artist where on a previous project he did 5 characters. You're like, okay, like, we had 3 years worth of work. This guy worked on 5 characters in 3 years. Like, is that really an efficient use of time and resources? Paying this guy what could be, if employed in the US, $90,000 to $100,000 a year to create a few characters. And the only reason I mention that type of wage thing is if you look at the average salary for a software developer in the US compared to an average salary of a software developer in the UK or Europe, the US is double the wage in most circumstances in the US than it is in the UK.
Yeah.
Or Europe. So there's things that they have to consider. Like I say, the tech space is a very well paid kind of sector to be in. So when they're cutting salaries, they're not cutting people on small wages. They're cutting people usually on 5 figures.
Yeah.
Or 6 figures.
Yeah, makes absolute sense what you're just saying. Let me briefly shout out H. Julia, who sends in a channel member chat for being a channel member for 17 months. That simply says hello, and a big hello to you, and of course a big hello to everyone who tuned in here today. Some have
Clifton Lamber's made a great point there as well, by the way.
let me still welcome the people that came in a little later. They deserve it, man. They deserve it. So, shout out to
Welcome
you
for
guys.
being late. Be early next time.
Dutch, that's okay. We were running usually a very long podcast, so it's totally okay to just come by whenever you have find the time. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. Dustin Lambert in the chat says state just Washington State just increased their tax revenue by 100%. A lot of these are employment taxes and taxes for tech companies. I live in Washington. These taxes are massive. Yeah.
And again, print screen underneath, he said, true, but the cost of living here is much higher, especially in New York, LA, and California.
Yeah.
Also agree. The cost of living for us has also went up. Everything is up through the roof, but that also translates to the employee and the employer, because the employer now has higher fuel, higher distribution costs, higher costs for R&D, higher materials costs, higher employment costs, employment taxes, higher utilities costs themselves. Like everything that is up for us is also up for the other companies. So they have to, in order to, again, companies are there to make profit. Just like we are our wages, we don't want to just sit on a wage and get by day to day. We want to make more so we're comfortable and can enjoy life. And of course, big companies want the same. They want to not just cover the costs of everything that they're doing. They want to be able to make a profit so that they can reinvest in it and potentially employ more people in the future and or invest in new projects that would generate more opportunities. So the only way they can do that in either short term or long term initially is to reduce their overheads by any means possible so that they have a bigger cushion, so that they can make more profit, so that profit can then be reinvested into other things further down the line. Of course, as we all know, all of these big guns at the top, like your Satyas and your board members, all have lovely bonuses of millions upon millions upon millions of dollars. And we can never justify that ourselves. But if you're sitting on the end of it as an employee and you've got a lovely bonus thing at the end, you're not going to complain either. Let's face it, if I come to the end of a year and I've achieved target and I get a lovely juicy bonus, I'm not going to be thinking about, and it sounds selfish, but I'm not going to be thinking about the guy at the bottom of the food chain that isn't earning that juicy bonus. I'm just going to be thinking, thank God, at the end of the year, we've been recognized. I've done what I've needed to do.
While I know what you mean, I still think that's exactly your job when you're on top management.
It is
your job to take care of your teams, and
it is, but at the same time, Satya's number one job isn't to take care of his teams. His number one job is to make that company as efficient as possible and make as much money as possible.
That is also true. Yeah. But yeah, so we shall see how this is going to affect the game development pipeline and what Xbox is doing. There have also been talks about distribution centers, especially here in Europe, being affected over proportionally, which wouldn't come as a surprise to me because we already know that they closed down the marketing departments for Europe, right? Not that they've done a job anyway. I can't remember when there has been marketing across Europe for Xbox, but it did sound. We shall see that more in depth, of course, once they revealed what they are cutting. But it did sound from the reporting of your likes of Jason Schreier and so on that the distribution centers and departments across Europe are affected over proportionally, which is a shame, but also not that much of a surprise because Xbox or Microsoft really doesn't care about the European market, which is still so strange when you think about that it's the second biggest gaming market in the world, right? And they just leave the field to PlayStation and Nintendo in the console space. But yeah, let's see, Dutch. Let's see what they actually will do, and move on and talk about something a little bit more exciting on the Xbox side of things. Last week, and we didn't have the chance to talk about this on the podcast just yet, so I want to start with you on that announcement that they made end of last week. Sarah Bond came out and talked about the next Xbox, the next gen Xbox, and that they have entered a partnership, a strategic partnership with AMD to design silicon, right, for multiple devices. She specifically mentioned, of course, consoles, PC cloud, and handhelds. 2 days later, Lisa Su, AMD's CEO, came out and she said, or reconfirmed that partnership, that they are working with Microsoft in designing specific gaming silicon that combines, the benefits of Risen and RDNA, that they target this silicon development for multiple devices. They also talked about the hardware, the silicon supporting backwards compatibility. Sarah Bond iterated on that to make sure that your gaming library comes with you. And especially Sarah Bond also heavily focused on them wanting to Windows to be the best place to play games, which is more or less a confirmation, right, that the next gen Xbox will be Windows based. So that there's a lot in there, and we need to dissect this before we talk about some of the things that happened this week in addition to that. But what are your thoughts on this partnership? What does it mean? I mean, there's a lot. Multiple devices, Windows, backwards compatibility. It's the fact that they did that announcement like 2 weeks after their big showcase. They could have easily implemented that as well into the Xbox showcase, right? So what are your thoughts, man? Let's dissect this a little bit. Let's talk about the fact that with the date, why didn't they put this kind of announcement? I mean, this is the first official, like, real announcement. Hey, next gen is coming, right? So why didn't they do that at the showcase? Why did they choose to do that 2 weeks, more than 2 weeks after the showcase?
I think it's because there wasn't really anything to say with regards to the actual box. They've confirmed a partnership with AMD, which I'm slightly disappointed with, because I'd much rather they went a different direction and maybe went back on board with NVIDIA like the original Xbox. I think that could have really set a precedent and a differentiator in the industry.
I agree.
Yeah, but I think the timing thing was maybe because they wanted to say, okay, well, we're confirming we're working with AMD again now on multiple devices going forward, whether it be console, handheld, PC, more than just custom chipsets. We're going to be looking at quite a few things. They're going to go above and beyond that. So I think it's more of an introductory before they start talking about the next iteration of Xbox. Do we maybe see the announcement of the next iteration of Xbox at the Game Awards, like we did the original reveal of the Series X?
Could be. I mean, that's the thing, right? It when they came out, like 2 weeks after that, it was one of the things I thought about. Of course, why not put this announcement in the actual showcase? But then, well, they had the Xbox Rock Alley in there, right? And in terms of hardware, that's about it. What you can put in such a showcase without stealing the conversation away. If they would have put that after the Rock Xbox Alley announcement or somewhere else in that showcase, right? There wouldn't have been as much talk about the Rock Alley because then people would have been talking about the actual next-gen Xbox console. So it kind of makes sense to not put it in the big showcase. But it also kind of makes sense to announce that from a business terms of view, because it makes leaks less probable, and the hiring process of staff is easier. Well, Xbox is laying off people, but I don't know about AMD. You know what I mean? There's just get ahead of the speculation, because especially with all the talk about the Rock Xbox Alley now running Windows, everyone was speculating, and this is gonna happen to the next Xbox console, but what about backwards compatibility then? How will they carry that over and so on? You get ahead in the game and in the conversation, and that's actually pretty smart to do that and just be clear. Okay, next Xbox, AMD, backwards compatibility in there, plus all the other stuff that they mentioned. So this is kind of makes sense. It gave the announcement of the Xbox Rock Xbox Alley room to breathe, right? Before the next gen talk takes over. So in that sense, I think it was a pretty smart decision to not put it in there. But there's also, of course, the discussion, Dutch, why now? When we look at the Xbox One X announcement many years ago, when was that? Like 2017, 8 years ago. They announced that console also more than a year in advance, with actually a very similar thing like they did now. They didn't show the Xbox One X just yet, but they talked, it's going to be a beast that eats monsters for breakfast. And there was just blah blah talk, no specific hardware details or anything else. They just said it's going to be a 4K machine, and it's going to be a monster that eats a beast that eats monsters for breakfast, right? And stuff like that, right? And pretty similar like this. So probably a bit more than a year in advance, because the Xbox One X was announced also at the Xbox Showcase in June, and then came out in November the year later. Then we look back at the Series X that was announced also almost a year in advance at the Game Awards, where they really didn't talk about hardware specifics. They didn't mention, hey, we are working with AMD or anything. It was just the console, the design of the console, and this brief Hellblade 2 trailer. So for them doing such an announcement of next gen now changed my mind, honestly, because I was in this ballpark where I said, hey, next gen Xbox, probably 27. But all this official talk, not the rumors, not the leaks, not the insiders, so-called insiders, and everyone around it discussing it, but the official Xbox coming out, AMD coming out, this is what next gen is gonna be. Is it really like 2 years away? 27 sounds so far away for such an announcement, because obviously this is gonna impact current gen sales, and it's gonna impact the way people are going to, if you do such an announcement, a lot of people will stop buying the games now on the Xbox store and just start building up their Steam libraries and stuff like that. You know that this is going to happen. So in my feeling, not having any inside knowledge, not claiming that like many other content creators do, I know a guy, right? But such a strong announcement would surprise me 2 years in advance if we're talking about a release in 27, and would actually be like 2.5 years, because we all know whenever the console is going to come out, it's going to be a November release. So we're talking November 27. That's 2.5 years basically from now, right? You don't do that. You don't. Even the year is pretty early. No one else is doing that. Nintendo didn't do it and PlayStation isn't doing that, and Nvidia isn't, like, they are not talking about the 6080 and the 6090 now. Yeah. This is like a couple of months in advance, and there's a reason for that. And Xbox did it differently with their consoles. They announced it a year in advance, and that made me think 25th anniversary coming up next year, Dutch. Wouldn't it be perfect to align? Because a lot of people I have heard talk about this, they said, well, this partnership just started. As if that partnership would have just started, dude, we wouldn't see a console in like before at least 29. At least. Because chip development isn't something you're just gonna do. This partnership has been going on for years. Whether it's a 26 or 27 release, it has been already going on for years. You do not design chips in a year and then release them. That's not how this works. So, Dutch, I'm thinking 26 makes sense. The stars would align with the 25th anniversary and the new Gears and the new Fable and the new Forza Horizon, right? And a Halo remake. You know, the four horsemen of what Xbox used to be in the OG days and the 360 days, where it's been Gears, Halo, Forza, Fable. Yeah, the stable house IPs come back to the 25th anniversary along with new hardware, and Gears is gonna look amazing. It just makes sense. And it would still be a November release 26, which is 1.5 years from now. And that's about it, how early you can announce a next-gen console. I don't know. I've been rambling on. How are you feeling about release date, man?
Yeah, I also think it's going to be next gen. As in like 2026. I think ultimately 26 is what we've been talking about for a while. How late do they show it off? Is it the Game Awards that they're going to show it off? Or are they going to talk a little bit more about it at Gamescom in August? Are they going to leave it till next June?
Gamescom, I don't think so. Gamescom will be heavily focused on the Xbox Rock Alley. Because that's the brand new thing. People will be able to play it at Gamescom. They need to hype the stuff up that comes out then. I don't think we hear anything from next gen until early mid next year.
Yeah.
They've done the
I don't know whether or not they'd mention it early next year though. Like you say, mid would be the only time it really makes sense, but
showcase next year. June showcase next year. That makes, if it comes out in 26, you're gonna see it then. Maybe I've said they're not doing a developer direct for a game, but the dev direct after the June case next year is gonna be for the next gen console. They're gonna explain what this is, what the new ecosystem is, how Windows will work on consoles, how backwards compatibility works, and then they release it in November. They announce, hey, and by the way, we have the 25th anniversary, and this is so awesome, and we are going to deliver on what the original vision was set out to be, right, to bring Windows in the living room, and now we are here after 25 years, and you're gonna get your favorite IPs that we have been known for, that have been with us for decades now, with Gears, with Forza, with Fable, with Halo. You will get to play that in the best way possible, with graphics never seen before, with AI supported upscaling and everything, frame gen, and all the good stuff. These buzzwords will be in that presentation, whenever it will be, right? But it would just make sense to do that next year.
Yeah, I completely agree. It would make complete sense.
So, Princess Green in the chat says, or we get a tease of the next gen console in 26, and it releases early 27. Well, never say never, but the fact is that no Xbox or PlayStation has ever released in another month than November. None. Every single console has launched in November. Different years, of course, but it's always been November. So it is more or less a safe bet that this is also going to launch in November, either November 26 or 27. But I don't think that they do a launch in like early 27. Honestly, it's just my personal thinking. And again, this was a very official announcement of the next gen. We learned a lot. We learned about the silicon design goals, right? RDNA and Risen combined. So we learned about that. We know that it's going to support or will have an NPU. It is more or less confirmed that the next gen console is going to be Windows based. It will support backward compatibility. We did learn all of that from an official announcement. So do you really think that they would do such an announcement like 2 years in advance? I just don't think so. I just don't. But I could be wrong, of course. It could be 27, right? But if the next gen Xbox console, and maybe we use that as a segue, Dutch, into the Windows discussion from the part of the announcement. If they move along into Windows, right, this is gonna change the way how living room consoles are going to work very much. And for the first time ever, they are not competing directly then in the space of PlayStation. They are competing, of course, still in the console space, but also in the PC space. It'll be a very different experience if you can play your Steam library, for instance, or your Epic library or whatever, on your living room console. And that makes also sense to then not really go head to head with a more traditional console that the PlayStation 6 is going to be in, 28? So releasing that console in 26, 2 years ahead of the PlayStation 6, is not just differentiating you from the release date itself from your biggest competitor in the console space, but then offering something, a very different, a new experience in the console space, right? Is just, it all comes together then, right? So, Dutch, what are you thinking about this more or less confirmation from Sarah Bond that this is going to be a Windows-based console? Because she literally said in the video, well, we have heavily focused on making Windows the best the best place to play games, or the best place for gaming.
I mean, we kind of saw it coming. We've been speaking. Septic sauce in the bloody chat. Gaz causing havoc as usual. We've been mentioning for a while though that it was likely be a hybrid. From everything they've been talking about, everything they've been hinting about, everything they've been working on. So it doesn't surprise us that it's going to be a hybrid system. We're looking at it, or potentially going to be a hybrid system. Of course, we will never say with definitives until they officially announce it. But I think ultimately the work that they're doing with the ROG Ally Xbox X, and the UI for that, and the crossover, and the Xbox Play Anywhere push, and the backwards compatibility team, and the Windows team. I think everybody in conjunction trying to make devices for Xbox Next Gen points towards that it's going to be more of a unified approach for both PC and console, where it will be likely a hybrid system. Now, there's obviously a lot of questions to be asked around that, specifically when it comes to how they're going to recoup for third-party losses. Because, of course, yes, you have Play Anywhere, but Steam is also significantly cheaper than buying on Xbox for third-party titles.
You know what? It hit me this week because we've been speculating for, I want to say, at least a year. It's been longer than a year, 15 months or so, on this, that the next Xbox is going to run Windows and it's going to be a different overlay. You're not going to boot into the desktop mode, but there's going to be some sort of overlay. We've talked about this for 15 months, 18 months, something like that. But we always talk about, well, how are they going to make money? Well, and the widely spread argument has always been, well, they don't care where you buy your games as long as you buy their games. But I never agreed with that argument, because at the end of the day, the entire idea of a console is to sell you a storefront, because you're not making money just off your own games that people are buying. And of course, Microsoft couldn't care less where you buy Call of Duty, right? Whether it's on PlayStation or Xbox or on Battle.net. Of course, they probably would prefer to buy it on their own store because they don't have to pay a cut. But at the end of the day, they're happy if you buy that game and play it. But that's not the point. The point is, where do you buy all your third-party games? Because that's the biggest part of the revenue. The microtransactions, the games that you are selling, Fortnite microtransactions. You want that money, right? You want to get your cut. You want to get your cut on GTA 6. Every single GTA 6 sale is making you money, right? That's the business model. So I don't think that's the idea. But this week they updated the Windows Insider preview thing, and they added the aggregated gaming library to the Xbox app. And people are now testing out, okay, my Steam games appear in my Xbox library and my good old games and so on. And it hit me this week. What's the idea of this, and how will they compensate the loss that they are making if people are starting to buy the games on Steam? Let me tell you that in the PC Windows app with the aggregated library, you cannot buy games from Steam. You cannot buy them there. You cannot buy them from Epic on that app. You would still have to go to Steam, buy the game, download it, and once it's installed, it pops up and you can launch it through the Xbox app. But the Steam store, isn't implemented in the Windows Xbox app. And I'm going to tell you that it's exactly how it's going to work on consoles. You will be able to install your already existing library from Steam, but there will not be the Steam storefront on the console.
Yep.
And
yep. I can
people,
understand that. I think
most
it's still
people,
one.
and this is a bet that they are making. Of course, it's a bet. Most people,
Yeah.
the casuals, are lazy. They are not going to go to the desktop PC, open up Steam, and buy, I don't know, Battlefield 6 on Steam, then go back to the console and open up the game there to save $5. They're just gonna go through the one store that will be available there. Yeah. Exactly.
That's the only drawback is you can do exactly what you can on the Xbox app as you can on the Steam app, and you can buy games. Yes, you can buy games on the Xbox itself on Xbox Store, but when people know there's the Steam summer sale on, and you just have to log into the app on your phone.
Yes, but people, again, this is going to be the fact, and it's definitely going to be a fact for me. Yeah, because I really don't care where I buy my games. I'm gonna just buy it where it's the cheapest. And I'm going to get the convenience. But at the end of the day, this is only going to be done by hardcore gamers. The most casual gamers are not going to do that. And that's a bet that they are making, because it could be the exact opposite. And because even the casuals are going to be educated customers that will look for the best price. And if the price is best on Epic, they're going to buy it on Epic. And if the price is best on Steam, they're going to buy it there. And then they're going to play it on the Xbox console. And that's fine for them. But at the end of the day, it's going to be a unique selling point for them to be able to write on the box. You can play everything: Xbox games, Steam games, Epic games. You can play everything on this box. But when you actually boot up the Xbox console, right, just like it is now in the PC app with the aggregated gaming library, you will only see your existing library. And if you want to purchase something, you have to open up the app on the phone. You have to open up Steam on your PC or whatever and buy the game. And this is gonna be for casuals, and that's the vast majority of the gamers. The vast majority gamers are not like us here in this community. It's gonna be, quote unquote, just your library there, but not the store. And that will lead to the fact that a lot of people that's sitting in the living room, oh, I need to buy the next FIFA. Am I going to do that on Steam? I'm just gonna click here and buy it. And I think that's their way of thinking. Because when you see that they have now Steam implemented on PC in the Xbox app, but you cannot access the store. You can only access your library. It's exactly what they're going to do with the console. I don't know. What do you think?
It depends on the person. Personally, if something's going to be cheaper on Steam, on occasion, I might buy it on Steam. If it's going to be substantially cheaper, and on occasion, the games are like substantially cheaper at launch. And again, you will have the ability to use that on PC and on handheld and on console. So you'll still have crossplay on Steam on that as well. So, and again, this is me, but if I can do it on myself.
You're not the normie, dude. You are not the normie. You're sitting there in your gaming room. You have a gaming PC. I can see the PlayStation. I can see the Series S, the Series X, and the Switch too, here in the background. Bro, you are not the normie. We probably all are not the normies that are informed, that stay up with the news, that do have multiple gaming systems, that listen to gaming podcasts. That this is not the casual normie. Absolutely not. And of course, you will be doing that. You will be still a customer of Game Pass, though, right? And that's good enough for them. But the regular normie that just gets a console to play FIFA and maybe Call of Duty, they will not bother to go to Steam to download the next FIFA, or what is it now called? Football Club. Right? I'm telling you, that's the bet that they are making. I'm telling you that, man.
You just never know.
Yeah, true that. But Dustin Lambert in the chat says, Microsoft's probably going to get a cut from every game bought through Steam via the Xbox PC app. Again, I do not. We have not seen any signs that they are going to implement the Steam Store on the Xbox app. They just released this week the update on Windows for the Xbox app. You can see your games there in your library section, but you cannot buy it from there. I don't think that they are going to implement the storefronts. They are just going to implement your libraries. And that's a bet. It's a big bet they are making, of course, because people could then just go to Steam and Microsoft will not get a cut. But I think the bet that they are making is that people are just too lazy for that. So let's see, man. Let's see. Dutch, let's talk a little bit about the hardware stuff and the hardware side of things. It's backwards compatibility. It's gonna be there. One of the big talking points was always, if they move to Windows, how is this going to work? Is my library safe? Are my games going to come with me? What does that mean for my games, right? It's been confirmed. It's going to be baked into the silicon, whatever that means. I do have my speculations in that, but backwards compatibility confirmed, right? Your existing library, the games that you can play now on your Series X, whether it's from the OG Xbox days, 360 days, the Xbox One days, or the Series days, will move forward with you. Everything you can play now on the Series X will be moving forward with you. Did that come as a surprise? What do you think, how it works? What's your thoughts on that, man?
No, it doesn't come as a surprise. I would absolutely hope that everything you can play should play on the next one. It needs to. It needs to. They're already, when it comes to hardware, they're already at a disadvantage anyway because their competitor for hardware in the console space specifically is already significantly ahead of them in terms of user base on the console side, not in terms of overall users, but the console side, how many physical units they have over that. So the one way Xbox need to kind of retain some form of competitiveness in that space is by offering full backwards compatibility with Series X, Xbox One, 360, even potentially OG Xbox, and of course future compatibility as well, which you'll see with the likes of PC games, etc. It's not going to be the easiest of thing to implement, especially if they go into a Windows base, and a lot of the games that were backwards compatible previously weren't on Windows, so it's going to have, again, on the hybrid front, it's going to have to be some form of coding on there so that it recognizes and is able to play Xbox specific titles that aren't Windows based, which is going to be easier said than done, but that's why they've brought back the backwards compatibility team and of course taken on board the Windows team in order to implement that for the next version of the hardware. So it's not going to be straightforward, but they absolutely need it to be backwards compatible in order to retain as much of the market that they have at the moment going forwards.
I agree. I mean, there's no other console manufacturer that is so heavily committed to backwards compatibility. Yes, we do have backwards compatibility now from the PS5 to the PS4, but no other company has been doing anything remotely close to what Xbox has been doing when it comes to backwards compatibility. You can play, of course, not every OG Xbox game, but you can play many of those. And those you cannot play are mainly not to technical issues, but because of licensing issues, right? The same goes for the 360 days. There's no way you can play PlayStation 2 games or PlayStation 3 games. Well, there are some now converted, but this is just amazing. Then they have all these enhancements from FPS boost to auto HDR to the upscaling of resolutions and so on. It's not just backwards compatibility that you can play the games, but they are actually automatically enhanced. And this is just this kind of commitment they've done to backwards compatibility. And why would they go away from that? Why would they? It doesn't make sense. So it doesn't come to me as a surprise. What came to me as a surprise is, though, how many big content creators, I'm not going to call out names here, this is not my style, but I've seen a lot of bullshit talks from some of the biggest content creators, even the Xbox-centric content creators, that they are not getting the why this is so important and so on. And there's just two things. The first is, when we talk about backwards compatibility, we're not just talking about you being able to play OG Xbox games or 360 Xbox games. We are literally talking about the game you bought a month ago.
Yeah.
The console wouldn't have backward compatibility, and you go out in November 26, buy the Xbox Next or whatever it's going to be called, right? You go out, buy the Xbox Next, and it wouldn't have backward compatibility. You wouldn't be able to play the game you just bought 2 weeks ago. This is how it used to work before we had backwards compatibility. When the Xbox One came out, you literally were not able to play the game you bought the other day on the 360. This is what it means to not have backward compatibility. And in a year 25, 26, 27, whenever this thing comes out, you cannot do that. You cannot do that. So that's fact one, yeah, which is totally forgotten by so many creators I've seen and talk about this. And the second thing is, of course, I'm not playing 360 games or OG Xbox games every day or every week, not even every month. But I've spent thousands and thousands of euros in building up that library. I checked 2 weeks ago when we had a discussion about Play Anywhere, right? It's when I checked. I have 723 games bought on the Xbox. That does not include the Game Pass games or anything like that. Yeah, it's the games I've bought, 723 games. Dude, that's like an investment of what?
Thousands?
20,000, 30,000, something in that ballpark. Of course, I'm going to care about that library coming with me. Of course I do. It's a car. You know, it's a heavy investment I made. Of course I'm going to care about. So I do really not understand how, again, some of the biggest YouTubers out there downplay the importance of backwards compatibility. Man.
I agree.
So
I agree. It's required. I mean, if you have to think about it, though, even Steam has backwards compatible with games released literally decades ago
Of course.
that you can play now. Now, obviously, that's the good thing is that a lot of these games are being re-released on Steam, so they work on modern computers because a lot of the games that we used to play simply could not, without some reconfiguring,
Yes.
run on modern computers.
Yes.
They were meant to be for like Windows 4 or Windows 97 or
And that's
something
by the way,
ridiculous.
because Sarah Bond, no, Lisa Su said, well, they are designing backward compatibility into the silicon. And I've seen a lot of speculation on what that actually means. The fact is that ever since the Xbox One, the consoles have been designed with an x86 architecture. And you really do not need dedicated silicon then to support this going forward. But the previous consoles have not been designed with an x86 architecture, right? A 360 isn't running on x86. And to have purely software emulation is simply not possible for many things. And I think that's the thing that is what they meant when they said, okay, we are baking this backwards compatibility into the silicon, that there is still a hardware support for emulation when it comes to those games. It's also probably going to be because Xbox, Xbox has been doing a lot to not just let the games run, but to actually enhance them. Auto HDR, FPS boost, and so on. And with the next chip supporting an NPU, why not use AI upscaling? With that, you can claim, okay, it's hardware supported. This is what this means. It's not like they are designing a chip to just let Xbox 360 games run there. This is not what this means, but it means that it supports hardware emulation, or hardware supported emulation. That's what this is, right? I don't know. How do you think this is going to be implemented into Windows then, if the next console runs on Windows?
Oh, it's hard. It is hard to tell because I don't. Again, I'm not. I am technically minded, but I also don't claim to understand how chip-based or hardware-based emulation or backwards compatibility would work. How they intend to implement that and how that would work at a surface level. Be interesting to find out. And obviously, we might get a deep dive on that in the future.
Yeah.
As to how that would work. I mean, it's great that they're implementing it, but it'd be interesting to see it in practice.
Yeah. And see, there has been a lot of speculation out there. Well, does that mean that backwards compatibility is then also coming to PCs? You will be able to play your console library then on PCs if they have support of backwards compatibility on Windows, on a Windows console. Why not do the same on PCs then? The first and foremost and the biggest reason will be because of licensing issues. But what if you are not playing the backwards compatibility games on the Windows-based consoles in Windows? But when you launch a backwards compatibility, they shut down Windows, they open the Xbox OS, and simply let the games run there. It seems to be the easiest way to do that. They've done a similar thing with 360 games. Everyone who used backwards compatibility on the current Xbox Series console, for instance, when you boot up a 360 game, you will see exactly that, right? You will see the 360 logo booting up, the OS coming up, and it takes you automatically, of course, into the game. You're not navigating the 360 dashboard, which, by the way, got an update this week for whatever reason. But anyway,
yeah.
But
I think it was just to put the advertisement of buy a Series X on it.
Yeah, probably. But the point
For
is,
the very few people still playing on a 360.
Yeah, true.
It has to be in the hundreds at this point. It can't be in the thousands.
I don't know. Dude, I'm really not sure. There are many countries that still remember it was up until 2 or 3 years ago when FIFA was still released for the PlayStation 3.
Yeah.
It's I'm not sure. We would have to research that, how many are actually still using the 360. But nevertheless, my point is about backward compatibility. I could easily see that happening, that they, on a Windows-based Xbox console, yeah, you just boot into the Xbox OS and then be able to play your backward compatibility game there. And everything is already implemented. And with that, navigating around the issue that you would violate a lot of licenses if you would be able to play your console games on a Windows PC, right? So that would be my guess if you would ask me in how this is going to work. But Dutch, another big topic was Sarah Bond mentioned that they are designing not just the next gen Xbox console with AMD. They are designing multiple different chips with AMD to support PC, console, cloud, of course, and whatever is in your hands, right? And this stirred up the speculation again. What is next gen going to be, right? Is this a multitude of devices? Are they designing these AMD chips for dedicated gaming PCs as well? Their gaming PC then running basically the same or similar chipset like your console does. Is there still an Xbox handheld coming? Because just a few weeks ago, we heard all these confirmations, different insiders, that it's been sidelined, that it's been put on hold, cancelled, and so on. A Xbox handheld designed from Xbox, from Microsoft, right? But the announcement from Sarah Bond was literally, hey, we're doing these chips for PC, cloud, handheld, console, everything, right? So what's that hardware strategy, man?
Yeah, it's intriguing. It's intriguing. We did all pick up on the fact that they said handhelds as well, so that made us think, okay, then I don't know whether or not people are aware whether or not they are making their own handheld, or whether or not they're making their own chips for handhelds to use that would be Xbox certified, or what the strategy is. But ultimately, I mean, it could see a point where, and I can understand if I could see a point where Xbox maybe make their own hardware, but they also certify other companies to make Xbox hardware using specific AMD chips that they create with them. Yeah. So there's multiple versions of an Xbox console, because if they're all hybrids and they're all PC based, maybe that's the way forward. And they kind of go, okay, this is ours, but also you can buy an Asus version of an Xbox, or you can buy an MSI version of an Xbox, or you can buy a Dell version of an Xbox,
or whatever.
Or you can, yeah. It could be that. It could be that. It's going to be intriguing to see how this pans out and what really comes of it. But yeah, intriguing to say the least.
So do you think they are still making their own Xbox handheld?
I mean, it's a possibility. It's definitely a possibility. It would be a shame if they didn't.
Because, I mean, the announcement really sounded like they are still working on one.
Yeah.
But then they also showed the Z2 Extreme chip that is going to be in the ROG Xbox Alley in that little video from Sarah, right? So what is it now? Is this chip already this co-designed, whatever co-designing means, AMD chip, AMD APU that is in the ROG Xbox Alley? With that, everything that Sarah said would still be true, right? Is this chip already one of those things, and Xbox not making their own handheld, or is it really no? We are still doing an Xbox handheld. Let us know in the chat what you guys think, right? Are they still making their own handheld? I don't know, but what you just said is so totally true. If they have a line of chips, right? A low power chip that is perfect for handhelds, that runs the same architecture for handhelds, a mid powered APU that is for consoles, right? For the living room console, and a high power APU on the same architecture for PCs, for gaming, pre-built gaming PCs, which is a massive market, right? That you then license out to everyone.
But not only just pre-built gaming PCs, but pre-built gaming PCs that don't have the fluff of Windows.
Yes,
I think that would be a big selling point as well.
Yeah,
because a lot of people buy gaming PCs for gaming and not for office and not for media content creation and not for doing anything else other than just gaming. And if you take away a lot of the fluff of Windows and a lot of the headache of Windows and a lot of the GPU and CPU processing that's required to have a desktop, that makes it more performant anyway.
And then suddenly the statement of this is an Xbox would be true, right? Then everything it truly is an Xbox.
Still, it would be true if everything was backwards compatible. Everything, not just some things, but everything. That's when it would be an Xbox.
Yeah, I know what you mean. But going forward, it would be.
Going forward, it would be. But
yeah,
you would have to respect the past in order to.
I do agree, but the past goes by quickly, and 2 years into the next gen, people will be thinking differently, because then the library that they are actually playing is on everything. And since it's Windows based, it makes it easier for developers, because because then the version you run on your living room console is basically the PC version, and developers do not have to build dedicated console versions of the games anymore. And the games are already made to be scaled, with low settings for the handheld device, with mid settings for the living room console, and with high-end settings for the PC and the cloud, maybe. It opens up the possibility to license it out. Alienware, MSI, Asus, Lenovo, you name it. Whoever wants to build a gaming PC can use that chipset, and it all works. Yeah, because same chip architecture, just with different power assets. It is hard to think that this is not the strategy that they are going for, right? With them specifically announcing a multitude of chipsets being developed, with them mentioning PC, cloud, handheld, console, everything. Why would they do anything differently? And I also think that this means the beginning of the end of traditional console cycles. We will probably see it if they do scale these chips across different power levels: low, mid, high, and super high. Yeah, 4 different like power settings for different devices. What would stop them to not have more often like hardware iterations? Right?
There would be no more. There would be no more theoretical generations.
Yes, theoretical generations would just come to an end, and we would see maybe not every iteration then directly comes from Microsoft, right? But who's not to say that Alienware, 2 years down the line, releases the same Xbox, it runs the same OS, this Windows Gaming Lite version, right? And all the games without a single developer needing to touch them, simply run the games, and then you can turn the settings from mid to high. And everything scales. There's really no need, if you go Windows based, there's really no need to have this locked console generations anymore. It opens up everything for having more iterative versions of console devices, because the console is then a PC, or the PC is the console. It just makes sense for Microsoft, right?
Yep.
Good, Dutch. Anything you would like to add on this whole what's the future of Xbox topic?
No. I think it's going to be interesting to find out when we find out more, whether it be this year at the Game Awards or whether it be next year at the next showcase, or it's going to be soon, because I do believe that they're going to be releasing it holiday 26.
Yeah, I agree. I do agree on that. I don't think it's going to be Gamescom again. They've just announced Gamescom, by the way, this week, right?
Yeah.
Xbox returning to Gamescom. FanFest is going to celebrate a 10-year anniversary there. So what do you think, man? Is Gamescom this year then for them?
I think just covering over a few things, maybe show off some more ideas Xbox stuff. We're going to be discussing a couple of the games that are coming out later this year. Maybe a little bit of Call of Duty. Yeah, it'll be kind of just the tail end of the year stuff. I don't think there's going to be anything meaty there. I could be surprised, but I don't believe so.
I agree. Gamescom for many years now they've always been present there with big booths and FanFest and all the good stuff. But it's never been the place for big announcements.
Nope.
It's for the stuff that comes out this holiday, people can get their hands on. And so I think it's safe to assume people will be able to play Outer Worlds 2 and Ninja Gaiden 4 and Call of Duty, and especially Rock Xbox Alley. I could see maybe that's a Gamescom announcement, the price and the release date. Right? 800 euros. Pre-order now, comes out in October. Something like that.
Yeah. Maybe he's a little bit more info on it, and yeah, because they haven't released a price for it yet, or an official date. So yeah, that would make sense if they did that at Gamescom.
Yeah, agree. All right, Dutch. Then let's move over to the community questions of this week.
Woo!
Each and every Wednesday, our listeners can write in and ask questions or propose topics for us to discuss here. We put up posts everywhere on Blue Sky, Twitter, or X, and YouTube. And you just can write in, no paywall. It's not locked behind Patreon or anything. Everyone can write in, and so did Stormplayer DX and asks this. Do you think we will see Death Stranding 2 on Xbox and with that PC, of course, this year or at least in spring 26?
No. We will see at least 1 year after its release.
I think it's going to be even longer. What did it take them to bring the first one to Xbox?
It took longer last time, but I don't think there was a version of it last time anyway.
Yeah, but who's to say that there's a version right now? Because even though Kojima bought the rights to the branding, it's still published and development supported by PlayStation.
It is.
And they are not...
It is, but I also don't think PlayStation or Sony want to tarnish their relationship with Kojima and put some sour grapes into his mouth. Kojima himself wants his game to be played by as many people as possible.
I have no doubt about that, but
yeah,
Sony doesn't play nice. And when it comes to PlayStation exclusives coming over to Xbox, when has there ever been a game that was released within a year after it was released on PlayStation, if it was an exclusive? The only one that comes to mind is Black Myth. Yeah, Black Myth Wukong, right? And officially that wasn't a PlayStation exclusive, right?
Just happens to release exactly 1 year to the date.
Yeah, I know, but with Death Stranding or any game that was officially like, this is a PlayStation exclusive, you know?
Yeah.
Look at Final Fantasy 16, 2 years. Final Fantasy 7 Remake, what now? 5-6 years. Death Stranding was also 4 or 5 years. And so I don't think that Death Stranding 2 is coming before 27 to Xbox.
Yeah, that's why I said at least 1 year. At least.
Yeah, that's 2 years, man. Gonna be more than a year. Definitely. 2-3 years from now. Maybe it doesn't even come to to Xbox per se. It just comes to PC. But since end of 26, we are getting the next Xbox console which runs Windows. You will be able to play it. Maybe that's the trick there, you know? Anyway. I don't want to play it anyway. I was bored to death with the first one. I'm not even remotely interested in the second one. So what would I know about that game? The Big Bridge writes in, hey there, Boxy and Dutch. Wish you a joyous and prosperous week. Thank you. Same to you and to everyone who listens. The question is, and he always writes in these great questions, Dutch, so listen carefully. You unfortunately have an audience with the High Lords of Cringe, and they are expecting a token of tribute, as per ancient custom. Only the most cringiest words shall prove worthy in their eyes. Otherwise, things could get ugly. You, with your exhaustive records of video game texts and dialogues, scour the Titanic database for cringe that would suit their need. What's the cringiest video game dialogue you've ever heard? There has been a lot of cringe in games over the years. It's a tough one. Dude, maybe...
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Cowabunga. That
was cringe. That was cringe. Maybe...
Duke
Nukem, Duke Nukem 3D was a classic, dude. But I'm talking about the game that took them 10 years and then came out towards the end of the Xbox 360 generation. What was that called? Duke Nukem Forever?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That was cringy as fuck. So there you go. Agent X-Force writes in, have you got a Nintendo Switch too? I'm hearing that it is not overly popular with gamers trading theirs in as early as day 2. What is your feeling on Nintendo's latest console? Is it a lazy option for Nintendo? And I
No,
personally add another
it's
question: is it
yeah.
really a good hardware? Uh, because we hear screen isn't that good and stuff like that. So Dutch, you have one.
Yes, the screen is absolutely fine. There's a lot of people bitching over something because, again, Digital Foundry went down to the fine tooth comb and said it was a slow screen. You're playing on a handheld, for fuck's sake. It's not a gaming PC. Stop treating everything like it should be a gaming PC. It's a fucking handheld device. You don't have to play it at 120 frames. There's absolutely nothing I'm going to be playing in handheld that needs to be 120 frames, let alone 60 frames or anything like that
Oh,
as a
60
definitive.
frames.
I love 60 frames, but it is a crystal clear. It is honestly a crystal clear. If you have a look at the previous fucking OG panel side by side with this one, it is a significant difference both in clarity, in color, in the color depth, in the HDR, in the movement and the latency on the screen. It's significant leaps over the OG version. But people going from OLED to this one, yes, you're going to see a difference. Of course you are, because it's an OLED screen versus a regular LCD panel. But honestly, this is one of the things that wind me up about the gaming industry right now is people are literally searching for reasons to be pissed off and annoyed. They're searching for
I
reasons
agree.
to be angry at things all the time. The Switch
Yeah.
2 is absolutely fine. There is no reason to get pissed off with it. And no, people are not handing it in their droves. That is a complete fabrication. There's a few people that have got faulty batches. Granted, there have been people with faulty batches where you can tell the screen is just weird as fuck and there's something absolutely wrong with the unit that they've received. But the one that I've got is absolutely fine. It looks fantastic. It runs fantastic. I've had no issues with it, no bugs, no problems whatsoever. And it's a significant leap over the OG one. So, no, in my opinion, the Switch is absolutely fine. Is it going to be competing with anything modern day? Absolutely not. That's not what I bought it for. I did not buy the Switch 2 to compete with an Xbox Series X or a PlayStation 5 or a PC. I bought a Switch 2 for me, specifically for Nintendo Switch titles and the occasional third party where I think, that might be cool to play on the go. That's about it. But the vast
For that,
majority,
you
the
gotta get
vast
the ROG
majority,
Xbox LE.
yeah, exactly. But the vast majority is going to be Donkey Kong or Metroid or Mario or Pokemon, things that are not intensive in that for instance, and that is exactly what that's for. People just need to stop looking for reasons to be angry at everything these days and just enjoy fucking gaming.
I totally agree with that, right? I think it all comes down to expectation levels. If you're gonna go out and get the Switch because you want a powerful gaming system, of course you're gonna get disappointed. Yeah. If you want a powerful handheld, you're gonna get a Lenovo Legion Go or a ROG Ally, right? Let alone the new ROG Ally that comes out this fall. Nintendo consoles have been for many decades now, 20 years or so, never been about power and technical prowess and the latest specs. That's not what Nintendo consoles have been. The Wii hasn't been, the Wii U hasn't been, the Switch hasn't been, and the Switch 2 isn't either. It's like you said, for playing the Nintendo games, playing your Marios, playing your just wanted to say Banjo, but I meant, of course, Donkey Kong,
Yeah,
Zelda,
same thing.
Pokemon, stuff like that. That's why you're getting. If you're into those games, then you need to get a Switch too. You're not gonna get
Yeah,
that to play the best version of, I don't know, Cyberpunk. That's not
no,
what you're getting the Switch for, right? So yeah, I think it comes down to expectations, and I totally do agree with you. Gamers, not every gamer, of course, but a vocal minority, very
Yeah.
vocal minority, just try to get angry about the gaming industry, and they look for everything. And technical stuff is always a welcome discussion point because it is rarely opinion based. On hardware specs, you can put actual figures, but you cannot put a figure on whether you enjoy a Death Stranding 2 or not, right? Or whether you like an art style or not. And that's why, especially when it comes to tech specs, people just like to get angry. Instead of just enjoying what the Switch 2 has to offer, or what an ROG Xbox LE has to offer, or whatever you're getting, a Steam Deck, or I don't know. But that's just it. But that brings us to the end of this podcast, man. As always, it has been an absolute blast to chat with you, and of course our awesome community. So I would like to say a big, big thank you to everyone who stayed here with us till the very end. We super appreciate that. Of course, also a big shout out to our listeners on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening. We hope you did enjoy the show. But Dutch, before we let everyone out, let everyone know where they can find you, man, and what you've coming up.
Yeah, I don't. To be fair, I don't have anything coming up, and it's all we're beholden with the podcast realm on whether or not it's been dry as fuck for news, or whether or not it's been a busy week. And then same in terms of game streaming and things like that. The heat and the temperatures currently are significantly too high to be doing any form of game streaming at the moment, or sitting here playing games. So, so you will see me here when the next podcast is on, whether that be next Thursday or the following Thursday. Fingers crossed news picks up and we get something to talk about so we can kind of bring you more content. Of course, this is episode 179 for us. That means 21 episodes to go until the podcast on my channel goes into the ether.
Yeah.
Forevermore.
It'll still be on this channel, because
it'll be on the
we always have to mention that people didn't really understand it. I'm getting a lot of messages, man, on this.
Yeah.
No, we
the
will
world
still...
of gaming will remain,
exactly.
But the midweek mix-up shall not. Yeah, so the midweek mix-up will be knocking it on the head at episode 200. World of Gaming will continue, and I will still be co-host at the World of Gaming.
Absolutely.
But yeah, creating podcasts, etc. As you can probably tell these days as well, gaming news has been few and far between as of late. It hasn't got the same excitement, and again, I think it's not down to our amazing audiences, but I think the gaming crowd in general have become different over the years that we've been doing it as well. And there's a lot of people that just like drama, and we've never been a drama channel, so we don't kind of try to create drama content or try to overdo things when there's like layoffs and make it a whole console war thing because of layoffs, or we don't make it a console war thing because a game doesn't run properly. We literally have never cared about that, never will care about that. So you'll never find us doing like rant podcasts about a certain game because they don't like it on a different platform. We play everything on every platform and we enjoy it and we talk about it. And because there is no news, recently there's been very little news on PlayStation or Nintendo.
Yes.
And only Xbox. And even then, it's only because Xbox is releasing games or having a showcase or having hardware have we been able to talk about things. Nintendo, of course, releasing hardware has been great, but they haven't had that many games to talk about on Nintendo recently, even having a new console released. So it's going to be nice if them two platforms could turn up and give us something to talk about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Especially with how dry the roadmap looks. Agreed, man. Dustin Lambert in the chat says Digital Foundry does more harm than good in the gaming industry.
It does these days.
It does these days. It used to be different.
It used to be talking about why a game's not performing, going back to the developer so they can fix the issue and then release an update. But now it's more just, this panel is terrible. Don't use this thing because the panel is terrible.
I don't understand
it's
the Xbox
because you are like
going
fish
forward.
in orders.
And this doesn't make sense.
We're
I
going
don't
to,
understand
for
what
instance,
the Rock
they
Xbox LE
compared,
is and so on. And then...
But they also compared the Nintendo Switch LCD screen to gaming monitors.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are you doing? This is clearly not a gaming monitor. It's a tiny LCD screen in a handheld.
I do agree there. And it is just fodder for the negativity out there. I do agree, Dustin. Absolutely. All right, Dutch. With that, let's come to an end for this week. We hopefully gonna be back next week, the regular time, Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. UK time, or 8 p.m. Central Europe. Until then, let's enjoy some games, because there is good stuff out there for everyone. So do enjoy your games. We will see you guys either on the social channels or next week here on the World of Gaming. Until then, don't forget to game on.